So up next, we get the three-way title match for the WWE title. Here's my thoughts really quick on this. I think the good card, it was in terms of the build, it was UFC style. We always talk about in the past how you worry about a match stealing the show, so therefore you always put a match in between two title matches. But here, and I don't think there's anything wrong with going back-to-back main title matches. I mean, what do you think about that?
It's usually it's kind of like you were saying, it's kind of like to kind of cleanse the palate. You get a really good match, then you put in a match that's kind of like a throwaway match to kind of tamp down the emotions so that they can get the energy back for the main event or the true main event of the show. Uh, I have no problem with that only because of the fact that there were only 6 matches on the card.
Right.
They could have had that US title match on the main card instead
Easily.
of that zombie garbage that they gave us during the show.
Well, not even
So
that, Sean. I mean, if you just reduce some of these matches, were just, especially the tag title match that we talked about. If you cut 5 minutes off that match, you have your Sheamus Ricochet match.
exactly, and that was just a matter of that match wasn't important enough to put on the main card. It's the same way where you very rarely will get an Intercontinental Championship match, which, by the way, a good chunk of the wrestlers that were on SmackDown and Raw weren't even on the card, which made no sense to me. It's not like this was one of those. I mean, they stopped doing brand specific pay-per-views. So why was there so little talent? I'm not saying you have to go with 9, 10, 11 matches, but they've got more than enough talent. They could have put on this pay-per-view to at least make it feel a little more special than it was. This felt like a very good card that you could have probably done at a house show or on Raw or SmackDown, and it would have been considered a very good card.
Well, I mean, I have no problem with, look, when you get 5 title matches on a card, I think it says a big deal for your company. The only problem is it wasn't too short in terms of length because it did end up going 3 hours. But you just feel like, wow, you feel bad almost for those other guys that don't get that pay-per-view time, if you will.
Yeah, and that's the way I felt about it as far as just the talent that was there that didn't get the opportunity to show up. You know, that's the one thing that I get. Similar to what they did with the Damian Priest. He's on the card, but look at the match that he was given. That could have been something completely different. Or somebody that was on Raw, they could have put on the show, maybe another tag team match that could have at least showcased a couple other faces on the card. They didn't do that.
Yeah, I think sometimes they just throw darts at the wall and say, okay, we're going to push this guy for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's so bad. All right, so I'm going to just go through this match. You can jump in at the end and tell me what you think. So obviously, just like that three-way at the beginning, I kind of had a thought that Strowman was going to be the guy to lose, just like Asuka did. And there was a spot in this match, by the way. I mean, there's more to talk about, but you're looking at all 3 guys, and you're like, Vince has to be creaming in his pants, seeing like in 2021, you got 3 guys that look like they could have been in the 80s, like just the size of guys that he loves so much.
Yes, the smallest guy in the match is Drew McIntyre, and he's what 6'4", 6'5".
No, he's actually taller than Lashley. You could say Lashley might weigh more, but I don't think so. I think they're very similar in size in terms of weight.
Yeah, similar in size, but I think Lashley is obviously stockier and a little bit heavier. Strowman is taller of all of them as far as getting his height and size and bulk. This is the kind of match that if McMahon had all 3 of these guys in the 80s, would have made him in WrestleMania. That would have been his that would have been WrestleMania, and that would have been the only match on the card. That would have been it.
Although, let's be fair. I mean, we're kind of sliding Vince here. I think all 3 guys would have been perfect heels to take the leg drop from Hogan. Let's be fair about that.
Yeah, I think that would have been the case. You would have had at least 3 years worth of big guys that you could have fed to Hogan if that was the case.
All right, so moving along, I kind of thought, regarding the no DQ, right? I'm thinking no DQ. Why don't someone just stab the other person? There's no disqualification. I'm going to just stab you. No one ever thought of that before.
Oh, good grief. That would definitely get you some mainstream attention and something like that.
Is there assault charges filed? Wait, excuse me, officer. There's no disqualification.
The match can't end. but he's bleeding and he's bleeding out. So what? Just pin him.
So okay,
I mean,
so Lashley gets
if WCW could drop blood in the middle of a ring, like
yeah.
gallons and gallons of blood, what's a little knifing? I guess in a context of a no DQ match, right?
All right, I thought about this. I think if Jim Ross were on the call, Lashley gets electrocuted, and nobody really says much about it. You think Jim Ross would be yelling, "Oh my God, Lashley's dead! Oh my God, Lashley's dead!" I mean, we saw him get electrocuted. He should be dead.
Yeah.
So, all right, so just moving along, and then you could jump in. Ridiculous, like let's be fair here. Ridiculous feats of strength from McIntyre and what he did with Strowman. I mean, Strowman's a monster, and McIntyre made him look like a cruiserweight the way he lifted him.
Oh yeah, he was literally doing what Scott Steiner used to be able to do, just suplex guys over his head, head and arm, and throwing them overhead suplexes, and just it's amazing how strong all three of these guys are.
Yeah, there was so many crazy spots where you just worried about guys' necks. Like they even pointed out one time that Strowman just missed landing on his neck. I mean, it's just dangerous, some of those spots.
The spot that Strowman did off the ropes while Lashley and McIntyre were down on the floor fighting, and he did like a half senton, half clothesline. Yeah. He looked like a bowling ball coming off of the apron. That was a nice spot. And then shortly after table, that, right?
The outside table was used. Yeah.
Then Strowman he had used the steps on Lashley. That was the spot I was telling you about. After they got on the floor, as I had alluded to earlier in the show, where you get the camera spot on. Once Lashley, we didn't even know had the steps, got popped in the face by Strowman, and then shortly after that, Drew came in and Claymore kicked him over the barricade, all within a good 15, 20-second spot. And the camera captured everything perfectly without blowing out anything.
Right. So we go to the finish here. And despite being dead, I guess like a zombie, Lashley miraculously reappears, recovers, hits the spear, gets the win. I'm just like, what the fuck? I mean, all right, but I'll say this. This was another, and this is the problem with your three-ways. This was another predictable triple threat finish, right?
Yes.
I mean,
sad but true. I mean, we knew the Claymore's coming, got the Claymore, and just like you would normally see, the heel does the heelish tactic of, he's done all the dirty work. Let me throw him out of the ring really quick and then get the pin. Molly Holly used to do that a lot when she had triple threat matches for the women's championship way back when, where her opponent would do all the dirty work. She'd grab the opponent, throw them out of the ring, and she'd get the win and then walk out with the belt. That's perfect heel tactics 101.
Now, I know you like the way the camera was shot and the way Lashley came in and did the spear, but don't you think they could have done that another way in terms of watching Lashley crawl down the ramp and then maybe being at least ringside and then out of nowhere hitting the spear?
Yeah, they could have done that. But I think what they were going for is